Good morning. I see a lot of children here today. I love children. I'm praying in my heart that our new youth program will be successful, and in the future we can open more. Being a child is a special time. I'm sure that when we were young, we remember it well. We have fond memories. And I believe that when we were young, we also dreamt what kind of job we'd have, what we would do when we grew up. I know that I did. Some of us may have dreamt of being astronauts, some teachers, maybe some of us dentists or doctors. But when I was young, I wanted to be a postman. I wanted to be a mailman. I would look out the window every morning and I would see this jolly little gentleman riding his bicycle with his red cheeks, whistling to himself, singing songs, and bringing good messages. He was a messenger. He'd deliver birthday cards and Christmas cards. Of course, I was a child, so I always looked at the good things he delivered, the packages, the parcels. Now I hate postmen because they deliver my bills, and I have to pay the money. And then as I grew up, when I was in elementary school, I'd learned more about messengers. Next slide, please. I learned about this man. This man fought in the Battle of Marathon. The Battle of Marathon was fought in Greece when the Greeks were fighting the Persians. Now, the Greeks actually won that battle. They beat the Persians. And this man ran 42 kilometers from Marathon to Athens to tell everybody that victory had been won and Greece was saved. He collapsed and died of a heart attack shortly after, but he was a great man. And this is why we run the 42-kilometer marathon now, right? The name marathon, right? Marathon comes from this Greek battle. And then in junior high school, next slide please. When I was at junior high, I learned about this amazing lady, Nancy Wake. She was the most decorated officer in the Allied forces. She was a messenger, and she delivered messages from the French resistance to the Allied forces. She was the most wanted spy. She was the most wanted person, female person, by the German soldiers. But she was never caught. She was known as the White Mouse. Next slide, please. So when I read this passage in Revelation 1:11, we read, "Write what you see in a book and send it to the 7 churches." But who took it? We know it wasn't John. Jesus knew that John was on the island of Patmos, a political prisoner. He couldn't deliver it himself. So Jesus told John to send it, a messenger. But who was this messenger? Who took it? It must have surely been a Christian, someone trusted, someone reliable. And if we look at the 7 churches as they are listed in the Bible, next slide please, as they are listed in the Bible, next slide, you can see that the messenger would have gone from Patmos and delivered them to each church in turn. This is very possible. One man delivering messages from Jesus to these 7 churches. Now what I'd like us to do today is take a journey to Sardis with our messenger. So imagine, if you will, our messenger approaching Sardis. His previous city was Thyatira, and he's left there now, and he's on the road to Sardis, on the path. He's got his parchment in his hands, the book, the scroll that the letter to Sardis is written on, kept in his bag. He's now fast approaching Sardis, and he knows he'll be reading this to the people, to the church at Sardis, and also hearing it himself for the first time. He sees Sardis on the horizon. It was easy to see. Sardis was a city built on a mountain. He could see it clearly, and soon he started the journey up to the gate of that city. Now Sardis, our messenger was thinking, had a reputation for being alive. They were a very, very big church indeed. The biggest in Asia Minor, actually. And they had a wonderful reputation. a wonderful reputation all over Asia Minor of being a church that was alive. A living, alive church. They had their amazing sermons. They had their Sunday schools, small group programs. They even had their EMT meetings. Everything was running well. It had the appearance of being alive. It had the appearance of being an amazing church. Now our messenger is quickly approaching the gate. Maybe he looked on the side of the road and saw some flowers growing through some rocks, and it made him think, wow, if the church of Sardis could be compared with a garden, what would that garden look like? Next slide, please. If Sardis was a garden, maybe it would look something like this. Why? Because he thought, surely this church is alive. Surely this church is growing. Surely this church is healthy, vibrant, full of color, full of life, just like a beautiful garden. So he's welcomed into the city, our messenger. The church is assembling, ready to hear the message. He starts reading. His voice is loud and confident. The words of him who have the 7 spirits and the 7 stars. I know your works. You have the reputation of being alive. But then our messenger read on, and his voice became quiet and stopped. People are wondering what's going on. People start shuffling their feet and leaning forward to hear what our messenger is saying. And then he reads this: you're dead. You have a reputation for being alive, but I, your Lord, tell you that you are dead. This is Jesus telling the church at Sardis that they are dead. The garden he thought looked like this. Next slide, please. Actually looked like this. The church he thought was so alive because of its reputation was actually dead. How could this be? How could a church with such a great reputation be called dead? And in chapter 3, verse 2, we find out. Next slide, please. In chapter 3, verse 2, Jesus says, I have not found your deeds complete in the sight of my God. I have not found your deeds complete in the sight of my God. What does this mean? And it's easy to look inward, isn't it? It's easy to minister to each other. It's easy to minister to those people who have already found Jesus. But reaching the unreached, claiming for God what is His, that is us, His creation and everything in it, pouring your heart into people who are lost, loving them as Christ first loved us, that's more difficult. And yet that's what we're told to do. That was Jesus' commission to us. To minister to the found, yes, but also to go beyond the church, to find the lost, to lead them out of the darkness and into the light. Maybe this is how the church at Sardis was failing. And what does the people of Sardis? Because He's a God of love. Because He wants the church of Sardis to work as it's supposed to work, finding the lost and filled with the Spirit. And He told them these 5 messages, these 5 commands, because He loves them and wants to give them a chance to come back to Him, for that branch to come back to the vine, to be reconnected and to have life and to be alive once again. Now our messenger is leaving Sardis. He's walking down the mountain again. He's going to the next church. And he's thinking in his mind, will the church wake up? Will they strengthen? Will they remember? Will they repent? Will they change? We don't know. But just as the message, the letter, spoke to the people of Sardis so long ago, so it also speaks to us here today and asks us these questions. Are we alive or are we dead? Are our deeds complete or are they not? Are we working with Jesus in sight or out of sight?